We'll see how that goes.
There's my opening gone. I was going to say thank you, Claire, for not mentioning the R word at your national stadium on St. Patrick's Day. And Andy, Andy's not here, but I'm glad he got my ticket. So I'm just going to, today, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Simply Blue Energy, but really I'm going to focus on our floating wind technology partners, Principal Power, and tell you what they're doing. Matt has just explained a little bit about Kincardine, and then lastly finish up and explain about two projects that we're working on here with Claire. So we set up, an old friend of mine from University Engineering in Trinity and I set up Simply Blue Energy in 2011, and we set it up for the opportunity of the wave resource in Ireland. I'm glad to tell you two guys now the Irish MSP is going to be published in March 2021, and in that 17 gig has been the number put in as an exploitable amount of wave energy, which is fantastic. We've morphed and moved into blue economy developers. I'm actually a property guy by background. Over the last 20 years, I've been in the property business. I'm a property developer in Sweden, and I don't see a whole pile of difference between us as project developers, as it's quite similar to the property development game. And we're lean, we're mean. We've got presences in Cornwall, in Ireland. Christoph and Mark are in Edinburgh, and hopefully soon opening up in Pembroke. And there's a small team of us of 10, but very much a project developer mindset. As I said, we started looking at floating wind, and in 2013 I met with Claire and Stuart, and in end of 2014, beginning of 2015, we set up a company called Simply Blue Energy Wave Hub Limited, and we took Berth 1 in Wave Hub, and we were working with a great guy who many of you will know here in the wave business, who had a technology out of Western Sweden. Unfortunately, that didn't work, and it came to the end of 2015, and we kind of thought, what are we going to do? Will we just, go back to our day jobs and build more sheds in Sweden with Des? Or would we fold up, or should we do what we actually did then, is what we should have done at the beginning. We carried out what we called a horizon scanning of all the wave concepts. We started with 149 globally, and we spent a year at it. We published it at the end of 2016. We brought it down to 11 companies. Graham and Sam, glad to say you were both in that 11. You were the outrider, by the way, Bombora, at that stage. But the two great deliverables we got out of that was one, we met with Core Power, which are a Swedish technology, also in Stockholm. They did 12 months of dry testing in 2017 into 18, and then they were in Orkney for 6 months last year, so have come out of Orkney. That was one of my questions earlier to Dara about the European funding, because I'd love to come back here, but I think there's an EIB issue. So then we came to the end of that process, and the second deliverable that came out was, in our belief as project developers and pilot project developers, as early emergence technology, first adopters, is it's not until 2025 before we were seeing wave energy being technically ready to go into a type of wave hub, maybe a little bit earlier. And so we then made a decision. Again, it was one of those binary ones, do we wait or do we stop? But I'd got involved with the floating wind industry. We'd looked around, I'd kind of done a global chasing of Principal Power. We looked at both Principal Power, we looked at the Equinor, Principal Power, the semi-sub float, which I'll tell you about. We set up a joint venture with them in the beginning of 2017. At the same time, I met Mr. Harwood, and he had taken one of those marine energy addictive pills as well. And he also has a passion for aquaculture. And I'm going, aquaculture? We're energy guys, or we're building guys, aquaculture. But the reality is it's multi-use of the sea. We talked about earlier, or Graham was referring to, combined, co-located wave and wind. And I do believe long-term there'll be co-located aquaculture, energy, co-located. We talked about hydrogen earlier. I think that is the future. Principal Power was set up in 2007. When I met them in 2016, before we set up in 2000, they had 30 people working with them. They're up to 100 people now. Cian Conroy, ex-Catapult, some of you might know, joined them. Great Cian is based in Dublin, so he's looking after the British Isles, Northern Europe. Backed by substantial shareholders, EDP, Repsol, good partners. Shell. Aker Solutions, they're oil and gas. And I think for anybody in the wave and maybe even the tidal sectors, they're great partners to bring in the marine ops guys, be it James Fishers of this world, the Subsea Sevens, the Akers. They're bringing a lot more than balance sheet and money. They're bringing that knowledge. Why Principal Power for us is because they're financeable. They've gone through full 5-year life cycle. I'll show you that. And at present, they've got 99 meg of projects on the go. This is the Principal Power technology, semi-sub. Just gives you some idea of size. It's about 70 metres centre to centre. This is WindFloat 1. It's a 2.3 Vestas turbine. It was deployed in Portugal in 2011. And it was decommissioned in 2016. Video gives a bit of an idea of what the challenges are, be a wave or floating wind, etc. Survived 17 meter waves, or went through with 17-meter wave storms. Where are Principal Power at present? So we come up here to the top right, WindFloat 2. WindFloat 2 is going back to the same location as WindFloat 1. It's 3 8.3 Vestas 164 turbines. That will be deployed, come online later this summer. Underlying there, please note, it's non-recourse finance has been put together. So this has moved on a stage from where we were with tidal or wave, and that's a critical point. Kincardine in Scotland. It is the 2.3 megawatt turbine. It's quite interesting. The WindFloat 1 that was in Portugal that was decommissioned, the actual floater was basically, nearly had the acetylene torches out to cut it up when the guys in Kincardine came back to Principal Power and said, help, we're going to run, this deadline for Roch of September 2018 is going to be up. Can you help us? So with 12 months to go, they managed to take the WindFloat, put the WindFloat back in the water, repaint it, change I think they got a couple of screwdrivers, tightened a few things up, went and bought the old, the Vespas, same 2.3 megawatt turbine. Don't know if that's a good business model if anyone's looking to set up a business, buy an old turbine and hope they're going to come back and buy it, but they certainly made a lot of money on that who had it. And so the interesting thing about that that WindFloat 1 that was redeployed in Kincardine in Scotland, it went out on the first electrons flowed on the 26th of September, so cut it pretty close to get to the end of September 2018 Roch deadline. But over the first 3 months, first 3 quarters, again, a capacity factor of 64%, which is phenomenal for onshore wind guys and even the offshore fixed guys, very similar to what the SPAR was achieving in Petershead. Down the bottom left, this is coming online in 2020. So WindFloat 1 this summer, WindFloat 2 next summer, and thirdly, Côte de Lion, which is coming on as 4 6s, is coming online in 2021. A lot of work is going on to the LCOE and on the floater in the Côte de Lion, so that's why I put that up. This project here, Humboldt, in California, they're in consenting stage now. It's between 110, 150 megawatt. The reason I put this up is it's of interest. It's a private-public partnership with the Red Coast Energy Authority, and it's kind of a business model that maybe we should all be looking at to try and push this sector on. As Matt was saying, let's get some early mover advantage. This photograph's just taken in November, so this is WindFloat 2 in Spain. And this here is a little bit outdated, but we talked about the opportunity and the global scale of floating wind, and this just proves what's happening. There's a huge amount going on in the US, Korea, Japan, Taiwan. They've grown to a 100-people company for a good reason. And as we're alluding to, within the opportunity within the Southwest and floating wind, there's a huge export potential there. It's whether we want to try and grab it and make that decision. Why is this potential there? Why are these happening? It's all to do with LCOE. It's all to do with the reduction of the levelized cost of energy. And the two main drivers in offshore wind are WACC, weighted average cost of capital, the cost of money, the institutions London are running into it, and secondly, size of turbines. So if we just look here, this is the difference between WindFloat 1 and WindFloat 2. It's a 2 megawatt turbine to an 8 megawatt turbine. So what, 4 times the capacity, 5 times the production, but it's only 1.75 times the cost. These are the main. All the other, floating wind is the same as offshore wind. It's just a different foundation. All the other smaller cost reductions that we're getting on the east coast in fixed wind is coming into the floating wind. And that's why we can compete and bring down the LCOE. So we can see the size of the turbines increasing. Principal Power working at present with Senvi on a 12 megawatt. But you can see here the cost trajectory coming out to 2030. So we heard earlier today fixed wind will be subsidy-free 2025. Floating wind is similar at our estimate is 2030. So a little bit about what we're doing with our partnership with Principal Power in the southwest. The first is we met with Matt, I think a couple of weeks after he started in April 2017 in Clare, and suggested that the Wave Hub site be repurposed to floating wind. So this scheme here is 8 megawatts. It was modelled by Green Giraffe, the financial brokers in London. It's 160 million inward investment. The deal structure is 60-40 debt equity. The required CFD at 2012 prices is just under £150 a megawatt hour. All going well, and hearing earlier from Christoph and Sue about timings, etc. Hopefully 2024 we're in the water, so that's a real project. Second project that we're in discussions with is Pembrokeshire Demonstration Zone, a 90 megawatt. We're looking at 10 9 megawatt, very similar, the same turbines that are going into Kincardine next year. It's just under £500 million inward investment. We're allowing capacity factor of 55%. That will require revenue support of about £150 a megawatt hour. Why is that different? Why is that not a lot less than the Wave Hub opportunity? The reason is because you're starting at the very beginning. Wave Hub are consented, ready to go. You can see here, again, on a fair wind, all going well. If we make decisions as regions, we then can be deployed in the water by 2026. And lastly, down here, talking with Core Power, and we discussed earlier, hopefully, if we were going to work with the PDZ zone, also with Core Power, we'd be looking and worked with them on a deployment there for one of the 30 megawatt zones in 2027. So I think this picture is brilliant. This is taken in early September in Dundee. And here he is, this guy fishing, and there is the wind float being towed out. I hope in a couple of years' time in Pembroke, the fishermen are more interested in their fish because they're seeing so many wind floats being towed out, and it becomes just a matter of fact. Thank you very much.